Hello, and welcome to Wise Women Wednesdays. This is Jennifer Regular from Lighting the Path, where I help and guide those that are at a crossroads find a new life direction. I'm also the host of this Wise Women Wednesday show here on YouTube, and today I'm here with Louise VN Liebenberg. She is an international best-selling author and transformational coach, and a counselor who specializes in adult-child syndrome, self-esteem development, and transforming unresolved grief. She loves taking long road trips with her husband, exploring new places on her motorbike. At home, she likes nothing better than getting started on her next book with her 3 cats up and curled up onto her legs. She gets her creative outlet in doing stained glass and ceramics. As your fearless, magnificent coacher, she believes in your ability to shine, overcome, and transform your life and relationships. Welcome, Louise. I am so grateful that you're here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jennifer. I feel that I should apologize for giving you such a long intro.
Oh, never apologize for all your accomplishments, Louise. And I know that you didn't just was born into this world with all of that. You had a journey. And share with us some of what that journey was. How did you get to this point in your life?
Well, you know, like most of us, I thought I had a reasonably happy upbringing because we all tend to minimize it. But the truth of it was that my father was alcoholic and my mother was a single mother trying to make do. She had a favorite child. It wasn't me. I wasn't a really good fit for her. And she was a perfectly nice person, but I wasn't a really good fit for her. So I grew up with my own bunch of limiting beliefs and hurts, and became an overachiever because that was how I knew how to take care of myself, how to put my hurt somewhere, but also because I had this absolute belief that I have to take care of myself. So married very young, married when I was 19, and eventually my once happy codependent relationship fell apart and it became spectacularly messy. And I turned into roadkill and I didn't have enough tools. And at that stage, and from really very opinionated, very a go-getter, who just, you know, lots of achievements, lots of things that I set out to do, made sure I got it done, stopped at nothing, just went through my goals. So I was successful, but I never felt that I fitted into the world. I acted a big show, but I always felt uncomfortable in company. And so when my relationship fell apart, because I just invested so much of my well-being in the world on that, I had nothing to hold on to. And I was in desperation and complete roadkill. And that was my biggest blessing, because it was my aha moment to stop and say, what is going on? And once I became ready, I found help, and I could change my life completely from the inside out, so that now I'm not shy anymore. I don't have to hold on to anybody to walk into a crowded room. I've softened into me. You know, I'm still determined. I'm still a go-getter, but I've softened into me. So I'm still the person I was, but just so much more of me. And I have happiness every day, and I feel grace, and I feel great joy. And that's an enormous blessing. So I'm so happy that I walked into a wall. It gave me this opportunity.
Yes, that's amazing. And what do you think was the key component of that? What was it that brought you to at that awakened state and saw that life needed to be something different? I mean, you were successful, you had a relationship that didn't work out in the end, worked out in a way that it took you to where you became more fully yourself, right? But what was it you think that was part of the actual awakening? What was that like?
You know, I wish I could say it was one thing, but and look, don't think I didn't try very long, because, you know, it was probably over a period of about 12 years that I knew our relationship was in trouble. And I started looking for help. I went to psychologists, we went to psychologists, for one after the other, 4 of them in a row, and spent years trying to find a solution. And there was no solution. It wasn't for a lack of trying. And I read books, and I tried. I really, really tried. But it was a nearly miraculous way in which everything came together the minute when I realized that what I've been doing in my life up to now is not working. And I had better find something else. And the thing that happened was that I actually woke up my husband in the middle of the night and said, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. I'm not willing to live with a relationship in which I am not feeling valued and loved, in which you don't even talk to me nicely. And that everything that we had before, when it was working, is gone. And I'm being blamed for everything. I can't do that one more minute. I'm not willing to live with this discord and this disconnection, this absence in my life anymore. And today, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, this morning, we decide how we're getting divorced. And it was, so if I have to look at one thing out of the many things, it is, I woke up to self-respect and self-care.
Yes.
If I wasn't willing at that stage to take a really good look and say, what is really the problem here? I'm willing to go along with this. I had to deeply question myself, and there was an amazing thought in my head. I said to myself, Louise, if you do not stop this now, this moment, if you don't stop being so sad, being so angry, being so lost, being so bewildered, so extremely sad, mourning for my relationship that went away, you are going to do enormous harm to yourself. You will get cancer or something that you can't recover from. I had some sort of deep knowing, and I didn't have any knowledge of epigenetics at that time, or any of the research that's available now about the mind-body connection. I just knew that the way I was living in hopeful expectation that somebody else would change and that somehow he would start loving me again was not good enough anymore, but I was worth more.
There comes a time when you see that wait and see is not for me. No. You know, you need to make a decision that, like you say, self-respect and honoring your needs for love and belonging and what you truly deserve and what you're worthy of. And once you can embrace that, then that's what comes to you and guides you on the path. And I love what you said. You know, I hear people sometimes, especially for those that have experienced domestic violence, for example, where they say, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And you can feel them retreating and shrinking with the I can't. But then when you actually say, I won't put up with this anymore, I won't do this anymore, then your heart comes out and you lift yourself up and you make that decision and that strength to say, I won't do that anymore. It takes out the victim mode of I can't to I won't, right? With the same result of leaving.
Those exact words, I can't do this anymore. I don't even know how many times I said it without changing anything. I went into helpless and hopeless for 2 full years of my life, which is terrible. And if you spend a short time in helpless and hopeless, your brain chemistry changes and you are actually more susceptible to cancer. So I shudder to think, what did I do to myself? What did I allow? It's that moment when you realize, I've been allowing this. That is the absolute moment when you are suddenly capable of doing things differently. When you suddenly realize, if I don't change something, I'm going to keep on getting what I'm having.
Yes, and when we operate from a wait and see mode, then we're waiting for someone else to make the decisions, to take control, to take on that responsibility. And then when we decide for ourselves, you know, the path that something needs to change, this isn't how I want to be living the rest of my life, then we take our own responsibility and we have our control back. And that's where we gain our power. You know, it can be it can feel harsh sometimes when we say you need to take responsibility for your life. But that's where the power is. That's where you find the strength. And you also learn that you can be strong and vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, and that you work yourself there. And we do need help along the way. You know, you mentioned that it took you 12 years before you felt like you can be in a better place, and that there were counselors involved and other people that came in to help inspire and empower you. And it sounds like that's what you're doing for others now. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, maybe I can elaborate a tiny little bit more about what happens inside us.
Yes.
So that we struggle to get to that point, because, you know, you read the intro. I'm a adult child specialist.
Yes.
Adult child syndrome specialist. Now, what that means is we had to grow up too young, and then we take all of these coping mechanisms, because they're not skills. It's coping mechanisms that we learned as children into our adult life, and they stop working. So here's a few examples, and let me just tell you that nearly everybody I talk to have got adult child syndrome, because at least 80% of us grew up in circumstances which was less than ideal, or we slipped through the cracks, you know, middle child, or there's a parent who died, or a divorce, or anything like that. So a huge amount of a population have got adult child syndrome without knowing it. Now, the typical kind of things that we take with us is, I have all the responsibility in the world. It's my duty. I have to fix it. So we don't ask for help, and we just take on everything. And another one is, and with that comes, I will never be supported. So we don't believe we will be supported. A big thing, which nearly everybody has, is, I'm not lovable, I'm not acceptable. And we have it deep inside, and we're very careful about who we let in. And that keeps us from people, that keeps us uncomfortable and closed. A lot of us walk around with deep hurts, and we are quite reactive. You know, very black and white thinking. This is the way it should be, and this is the way it shouldn't be. And there's like nothing in the middle. So when we find somebody who loves us unconditionally, it's our greatest gift. So when we find that person, even, and this is really true for abuse cases, even if that person loves us for 5 minutes, we are never going to forget how it felt when that person loved us unconditionally. Honeymoon's over, and the next minute all the drama starts, or the disconnects, but we still remember how it felt to be loved and accepted, even although it lasted for a short time. And as long as we have enough hope, somebody just have to pitch up and go with you to a psychologist, not even work, just pitch up. Yes, of course I'll go. Or be abusive, and the next day come, I'm really sorry, please forgive me, it will go better. That is enough to keep us locked, not because of our apology, because of what we remember. That first time when somebody loved us unconditionally. So because of that, not any other reason, because a lot of people are going like, why the heck can't I leave? Why? I'm strong, I'm intelligent, I've got so many good qualities. Why can't I walk out of this? It's because of that, because we once felt loved and accepted. And then if we have a slightest bit of hope, the half-assed apology, you know, I'll go to the psychologist with you. Yeah? The promise, of course I'll work on it. The promise, not the real deeds. That's enough to keep us trapped. And I was in a situation like that, where I was kept trapped by the promise. And I'm not a stupid person.
Trapped by the promise.
Yeah. And kept prisoner by that first time when I felt 100% accepted by another human being.
Yes. I'm sure there's so many people listening right now who can relate to that.
I think so too. Yeah, so you asked, how do I help other people? So I help people to see their patterns. So their patterns are what is keeping them trapped. So first of all, help people to see their patterns, and then I give people real tools, self-love, and having boundaries, and stop people pleasing, and learn communication. I practice conversations with people step by step by step, so people can learn how to speak, because if nobody taught you how to have boundaries, how to be self-respecting, how to have your own opinion, how to like your own opinion, how amazing you are, you have to start at kindergarten, and you have to reparent yourself. I help people reparent themselves so that they can be fully actualized, self-empowered human beings who has a voice and who has a choice and can go out there and rock their lives, create for themselves the life that they really deserve.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And we find that it's kind of a paradox in that we want to be seen and heard, and yet we can fear it at the same time. And so having someone who can show us real tools on how to find the confidence in that and to feel empowered and live a life that we love and love the life that we're living, is so important. And so the work you do, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that for people to be able to harness their power and their purpose in life. And I remember too that you mentioned that you can find wisdom in the most surprising places in a way that anyone can achieve. Can you share more about that?
Yes, it's like my favorite thing in the world, because
Yes.
It's so easy. So, part of our inheritance when we grow up with so many wounds is that we become very attached to our opinion, but also we are really scared of being wrong. So either we've got this idea that we have to be perfect. That's the only way in which we feel in control of our world, if we are perfect and if we control a lot of things. And then secondly, a lot of us have grown up with harsh criticism, or with a parent who so redirected our thoughts and behavior into the way that they wanted us to be, and not acknowledging us for ourselves, that we sometimes become grown-ups with no idea who we really are. Either from surviving and becoming really tough, or because we gave up our personality to what a parent wanted from us. And so those are the kind of two extremes, but we all mixes of that. So we have a fear of being wrong. And once we embrace being wrong, everything changes. So that is the shortcut to wisdom. You cannot get to wisdom if you are not willing to be very, very, very wrong. And there's a very good reason for that. So if we remember that we are really who we are at 7 years old, if we don't live a life in which we interrogate our thought system, our outlooks, if we challenge our own belief system, and we just accept everything, we are being 7 years old. So our job as an adult is to go back and to check every single thing that we believe, and to say, yes, whose belief is this? Is this a belief of my church, of my parents, of a teacher, of a friend? Is this the belief of a media, or is this something that works for me? Because we do not have a belief if it's somebody else's, but that, whatever it is, can be directing us. We also have to do a second step, because this is the part that a lot of people know and that you can go read about. And there are other people saying this. The one which we don't read about so often is, if you have not lived a life in which you are examining yourself, are you happy that a 7-year-old is in charge of you? Because that 7-year-old will remember every single thing that 7-year-old learned in trauma. And if that 7-year-old that 4-year-old had a trauma in which a parent, well-meaning parent, said, I'm going to leave you by the side of the road if you scream one more time, and you internalized it, you will walk around with a fear of being left by the side of the road if you don't behave, and you're going to be intimidated. So sometimes it's nothing, but it's a 4-year-old's interpretation. Sometimes it's a huge thing. But what we don't remember is this. As an adult, if somebody says to you, you're going to be left by the side of a road if you don't behave, you have a whole different way of reacting to that than a child.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, as an adult, you need to go and re-examine where are these hurts and fears and beliefs coming from. Because as myself, as an adult, I can handle that, even big things. As a 4-year-old, if your parents disappear off the hospital for 3 weeks and nobody tells you because you're small, you're not going to notice. Your world have ended and you're unsure and you stop trusting yourself because everybody's acting like it's normal, but your world have ended. As a grown-up, you can ask, you can question. So everything that happened to you as a child, you have to take it and look at it from your adult perspective. And you can handle it. But we fear it because we come from our child perspective. And you just need somebody who can hold your hand and walk you through it. And then you find out, I have these fears and these beliefs, but they don't belong to me. They belong to a little one that I was. And I have a power to transform them. It does need a little bit of help most of the time, though.
I'm curious, Louise, as your adult self now, and whatever age you're at now, what would you say to your 7-year-old self now?
You have been born completely and utterly lovable, acceptable, and perfect. Don't try to be more than who you are. You are already that. And don't take on the wounds of the adults around you. That's their wounds. It's not yours. And it's their shame. It's not yours.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I understand one of your other specialties is about unresolved grief. And there's a worksheet that you have on how people can find emotional freedom for that unresolved grief. And I know that you have a free gift for our audience on that. So you'll see the link below this video. But can you share a little bit more about what unresolved grief looks like, how someone might be able to recognize that, and then how can they find the freedom from that?
You know, people with unresolved grief normally knows that something is wrong. For a lot of people, it is in the fears, like I've described, and sometimes we can't even remember why we have these fears and why we are over-controlling things so much. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of over-controlling. You can know you're walking around with some unresolved grief inside you. And so I'm talking about the childhood grief here, more than the adult grief, because as adults, we can also get stuck in our grief. And I do help with that, but generally it relates back again to some childhood grief, and that makes the adult grief worse. So the other way in which childhood grief comes out is very reactive. Somebody being very reactive and immediate answers, very definite ideas, very defensive, you know. So somebody who's really hard to live with because of this, of all these reactions. And that was me, you know. I'm not, there's no judgment from me. I'm like, I can put my hand up for every single thing. And so those ones show us that we have a lot of hurt underneath. But there's another thing which is weird, because it can be the most successful person, highly driven, workaholic, totally dedicated. Burnout is chasing you because you've taken so much on you. And you have this belief system that nobody's ever going to be there for you. And that's part of your unresolved grief. So a lot of people will only see it in their relationships. So their life will look beautiful because they work so hard. They've got this idea, everything must look okay. So they always make sure they look okay. But in your relationships, sooner or later, you fall apart. And that is normally for perfectionists, the thing where you can go and look. Because everything else looks beautiful, and you're going to present like that to the world. Very few people in this world don't have unresolved griefs, and most of us know, I'm looking for something is slightly off. I don't fit 100% in the world. I'm a square peg in a round hole. And like I knew that I had leadership qualities. I just had no clue how to do it. So somehow you can be as successful as you want to be, but you sort of know there's a little something off and you can't quite say what.
Incredible. And so how do we find emotional freedom from that? How do we detach from those kind of emotional reactions?
First of all, is awareness. So not to call it, I need to control this because I'm scared that this will happen to that person. If we start calling it by the right thing, I need to control this because I'm scared of losing this person. Now I can start dealing with it. But as long as you put it on something or something else, you can't backtrack any of your steps. We've got complete blind spots about these. And it usually needs somebody to help us, or really good questions for us to start waking up and finding out how much of what's going on in our lives is really hard. We're creating by our patterns. And so, and so once we wake up, we can go, oh, I'm doing that. That's why the road to wisdom is the willingness to be wrong. Because once you understand, okay, I had a very big part here. It's not that person after all. Let me start with me.
Yes. Always comes back to us.
Always.
Wow, Louise, that is amazing. The work you're doing is spectacular. And how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach you?
My website is infinitepotential.com. It's I-infinite, so I, because everyone has infinite potential. Infinitepotential.com. I've got you can get hold of me on Instagram. I love Instagram. I'm on YouTube every week with some live training. So I've got lots of free videos for people on YouTube and on Facebook. And every week, there's something every week. And it's, real and uncut, and show up as you are. And so it's all sitting there. And I've got a book out. You can see.
Yes, hamster wheel relationships for women.
Yes, and it's actually for everyone, because the men book is supposed to be coming out, but I just don't have time to do it. But it is for everyone. And the way we get past all our problems of not being able to see what our roadblocks are is that there's a workbook that comes with it, 70-page workbook.
Wow.
That every chapter, there's exercises and the workbook that goes with it, and the questions in there and the exercises in there opens our eyes. It's like literally the process that I use with my clients. So if somebody wants to do some coaching, they can get the book, self-coaching, and they can do that. Otherwise, on my website, and signing up for a free gift of the trauma one. Oh, the free gift for your audience is, if you complete the form and at the end you say, I am from Jennifer's audience, and please, can I have my free half-an-hour appointment with you for your audience?
Beautiful. Thank you so much for offering that. And take Louise up on that offer. She has so much to offer you, so much that you can find out about yourself and start loving yourself again and finding your self-worth and valuing yourself more and making life so much more than it is now. Thank you, Louise, for all that you shared with us for today and your presence. Thank you.
My big pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll see you again next week, everyone. And that was Wise Women Wednesdays with Louise VN Liebenberg. And you'll find all of her links below this video, including the free gifts. Bye for now.